Aloha. Welcome to American Issues Take One. I'm Tim Apicella, your host, and today's title is Trump's Pending Indictment Ties the GOP to Him. Donald Trump predicted his indictment was forthcoming. It was going to happen on Tuesday, yesterday. Guess what? It didn't happen. And all we are left to believe is it probably will come. The question is when. So the other question goes to the heart of the matter is, did Donald Trump just plan this as an opportunity for more self-promotion, the self-promotion we saw during his entire presidency? And to discuss that, we'll be right back. With me today is my special esteemed guest, Chuck Crumpton. Hey, Chuck, good morning. Welcome.
Hey, Tim, welcome. Hey, gee, I don't know how we're going to do this J-less.
I should have mentioned that Jay Fidell is on assignment, and I'm his fill-in co-host. So you're right. How are we going to do this without our esteemed and El Jefe?
Well, and Cynthia.
Jay Fidell.
And Stephanie, right. So,
yeah. Here we are again. Donald Trump's back in the headlines. We had him for 5 years. Then we had a mini break. Well, not really a break because we had January 6th. Yet here we are with an indictment right on his doorstep, but we don't know when that indictment actually knocks on the door. So what's your thoughts about Donald Trump making a prediction about his indictment and his arrest and that it's not happening?
I think you nailed it. Trump will take the spotlight any way you can get it. It's another opportunity for a Trump toddler tantrum. And here we go, right? Because one, it gives him back the central position in the narrative. And he is supremely self-confident that no matter what he says or does, it will be the best because he's the best. He knows the most about virtually every topic there is out there. Second thing is, and the real heart of the matter, this is a fundraising opportunity and ploy for him. And one of the reasons you see the GOP kind of kissing up and following his lead is he still has the biggest and the best ties to most of the money and the biggest of the donors. They are not about to let that connection.
But wouldn't have this been an opportunity finally for the GOP to go, let's be rid of this clown. Let's be rid of him. Let's get him off the stage and let's have a serious 2024 run for the presidency of the United States. And wouldn't have this been the most opportune time to do that?
No, the one thing you might have to actually give them credit for, although patience and strategic judgment are not their hallmarks, is there are potentially 6 indictment areas, right? This is only the first. This is, and I hate to say it, regarding a sexual affair with a porn star, but this is the appetizer. This is the hors d'oeuvre. And that's maybe even less
before the main
choice of words, depending on how you pronounce your French. But yeah,
well, okay. Well, let me lead that to the next question. That is it somewhat of a disappointment that this is the first indictment or potentially the first indictment? Because, the criticism is that Bragg, the district attorney for New York, has chosen to come after Donald Trump with a misdemeanor, most likely, and it could turn into a felony. But that plays into Donald Trump's hand that, once again, the Democrat and the Department of Justice and all these attorney generals and district attorneys for all these liberal states are conducting nothing more than a witch hunt to get Donald Trump off the stage. Does that play well in Peoria?
I'm not sure Peoria is representative, but wherever it is representative, if there is anywhere, probably not. But it's important to remember here that whether this is a misdemeanor or a lower class felony, it connects into the tax evasion stuff. because the misrepresentation of this payment, and it also ties into campaign finance stuff. So it connects to the money. That's the attraction. That's what makes this such a good appetizer. You just kind of wonder how they're going to do with the main course, and it kind of tees it up, which in Trump's case is a good thing.
Yeah. Well, yeah. How much money do you think he'll be successful as raising this time around? Every time he puts out, a new nonprofit organization, he gets millions of dollars from it. And of course, most of those millions of dollars are spent basically paying for his attorneys to defend him.
Well, yeah, I'm not sure I really agree with the last part of that, because giving instances where Trump has actually paid his attorneys may be harder to find.
Okay, I stand fully corrected. Thank you for that point.
That's the ostensible purpose, but it never gets to that. That transaction doesn't happen, as Rudy well knows.
Yeah, well, as they all know.
And Rudy's
half of them can't take him on as a client.
Maybe that's one of the reasons Rudy Giuliani is going so nuts about the indictment, is just it makes it more and more unlikely that he'll ever get paid a dime.
True, very true. So are you at all concerned that his initial words were to protest, and let's take back America? That had echoes of the words just before the January 6th attack on the Capitol. Many opine that, yeah, that's exactly what he's doing, is another round of stochastic speech to imply that he wants his protesters to get out there and really fight hard for Donald Trump and the injustice that he's been served up. Are you at all concerned about those words?
We'll have to wait and see. I don't think this indictment, if and when it comes, it would trigger that scale of January 6th stuff. But one of the things that's really important to understand about the aftermath of January 6th, both the House committee and the prosecutions, is that those are not just to hold people accountable. They definitely put a high priority on the second prong of the criminal justice system, which is deterrence. Mm-hmm. So are people...
I would agree that 1,000 convictions is not a bad deterrent. And do you think that's why crowds in front of the Manhattan District Court or in front of Trump Tower has been fairly lackluster?
Yeah, most of them are reporters. Very few are actual protesters. Yeah. So, and which is sad for the reporters, because they have nobody to interview except each other. In fact, one actually started an interview until he asked the guy what he does for a living, and turned out to be another reporter. So,
well, I saw one report where the guy goes, "I wish I wasn't a sign here. I'm sitting next to a guy in adult diapers." Apparently an anti-Trump protester, but there it is. There's the circus. A lot of time has, again, been discussed about the timing of this indictment and Trump's concern about what is referred to as the perp walk, which is to say how you go out in chains in front of the cameras before you're fingerprinted and your mugshot is taken. And they think that a great deal of Trump's time and concern is over how he'll look in front of the cameras.
But why should we even imagine that will be a problem? Orange has been his color for years. So why not a jumpsuit to go with
a snare drum? I would wrap it now. What if they want to do it behind closed doors? What if they want to say, no, we're going to slip you in the side door because we don't want this to be a circus?
Trump's going to go wherever he chooses to go. They can offer him that. They can orchestrate that. But if he wants the front door spotlight, that's where he's going to go. And he will have his own entourage, small though it may be, to make sure that he gets there.
Well, I would think that a certain amount of coordination has to take place, not only with his attorneys, but the Secret Service needs to be part of the discussion and part of the planning and the routes taken. And again, whether it's the front door, the side door, the back door, we'll see to what degree this almost becomes like a Michael Jackson type of court case where you have thousands of people, along the rope line trying to be part of the whole circus. Any predictions on what's going to happen on that one?
That's a great point, Tim, because the other thing that we can recognize now is it's not so certain that the Secret Service is his best buddies anymore. That's another relationship and set of people that he has verbally, publicly abused a number of times.
Well, when all your Secret Service loses their text capability or the ability to prove the text they received on January 6th and leading up to January 6th suddenly disappear, something tells me those individuals may have been replaced. You're right.
The smartphones and the body cams are likely to be back this time for their own protection.
You think that'll work and they won't be wiped clean after a certain amount of days or hours after the event?
Well, it's my understanding that this administration has changed wiper blades, but that's only my impression.
Mm-hmm. So if you're the district attorney, is it Alan Bragg? I forget his first name. Last name Bragg. How do you try to plan this to avoid the circus and make him not look like the victim or the martyr? That's how Trump is playing this, that he's both a martyr and the victim all in one, rather than what he is an individual who's not above the law, who is not above the prospect of prosecution.
Well, I hope I'm not the first nor the last to say, I would love to see Trump become a true martyr and a true victim of this prosecution. Whether he calls it a witch hunt or a Pinocchio hunt or whatever he calls it, but to become a true martyr, to become a true victim, he's got to go to the full Joan of Arc. Somebody's got to light the fire, and this prosecutor is willing to do that.
Do you think this prosecutor has in any way been intimidated by Kevin McCarthy and Lindsey Graham and the heavy hitters on the GOP side, saying that the selection of this indictment is nothing more than a Democratic payback?
Hard to even ask that question. This guy is in New York. It's a blue state. They have absolutely no control or influence over his job stability, his prestige, or anything else. And in terms of timing, if he were intimidated, he would have been intimidated a long time ago. He's already stepped up to the microphone.
Let me run something past you. I've heard, again, over the last couple of days, is that this probably wasn't the best case to have the first indictment, a point of historical note. And, the fact that it's hush money paid to a porn star named Stormy Daniels, there could have been a better case for that first indictment. And like you said, maybe those balls are being teed up right now. But there was discussion about whether or not the certain district attorneys or prosecutors would all get on a conference call or a Zoom meeting or in-person meeting and determine who would be the first out of the gate. I don't think that took place, and I don't think it would be a wise idea, because then you really do have the appearance or the perception of political collusion. Your thoughts on that point, whether or not this was the best case to out of the gate, and whether or not there should have been some coordination on who goes first?
Okay, great question in both respects. First of all the cases, this is the one that is least subject to political spin. Bill Clinton found that out the hard way. so to speak. But
continue, please.
And I'm almost kind of surprised and amused that Trump hasn't said about this as about the documents at Mar-a-Lago. Hey, this is what presidents do. Bill did it. We have no idea whether Tricky Dick did it or not, but probably not, because he was under a much tighter control and surveillance than either Trump or Bill have ever been. But the second thing is, I would be extremely surprised if the lead prosecutors and their teams have not been in contact. Frankly, I mean, I don't do criminal stuff. That wasn't my stuff. But if I were going to pick one out of the 6, this would be the first one.
Well, and don't you want at least the first one to be a slam dunk? Let's admit it. There's a lot of twists and turns with the January 6th potential indictments, whether or not, the false electors would be part of the charge, or whether he incited, a riot and an attack upon the Capitol. I mean, it's not always black and white, but isn't payments made pretty much a bank statement here and there, or a check here and there, and his fixer, Michael Cohen? I mean, those are pretty definitive points of evidence. Isn't it best to have an indictment that actually could be a slam dunk as far as a conviction?
Well, that's helpful, but there's another really important point here, and that is, of all 6, this is the one the least likely to be able to generate substantial fundraising by and for Trump.
Right.
Who's going to give him money to defend what appears to be pretty obvious? I mean, he bragged about this stuff.
Yeah, he did on the Access Hollywood video.
Well, and he spoke in ways and used words that not only presidents don't use, but even much lower level local politicians don't use in public conversation. He's flaunted his impregnability, so to speak.
So what you're saying is there's not a lot of sympathy on this particular issue for Donald Trump? Well,
as Confucius once said much more eloquently in Chinese, in Mandarin,
here it comes.
He can't take a joke, right?
Well, okay. To that point, you have Kevin McCarthy, you have Lindsey Graham. To some extent, well, let's keep Ron DeSantis out of this one for right now. But you have these guys basically saddling up to Donald Trump once again and basically defending him on this particular indictment that, this district attorney Bragg, he's just going out of his way. There's plenty of more things in New York City that he should be spending his time with, but no, they've got to spend his time with Donald Trump and the indictment of payments to a porn star, and whether or not there's a campaign finance issue there somewhere or not. But aren't these GOP leaders way over the diving board? Because they really don't know what the evidence is in this indictment. They have no idea what's in there.
It's not the point. Show me the last time when a GOP leader showed any respect or priority for the truth of what they said, for the reliability and credibility of the source of what they said, or for the consequences, however adverse and harmful they might be, to whomever it might land on.
So, they
don't care.
To your point, then, when they're wrong, it doesn't matter. It's past the news cycle. There's no embarrassment factor. There's no the walk of shame that I went out, my gun's cocked, but yet no ammunition in the barrel, in the chambers. Who cares? Is that what you're part of what you're saying?
That appears to be the pattern. The value of the microphone to those particular people outweighs any possible risk of being untruthful, manipulative, or even inciting harmful behavior.
let's go to Mike Pence, because he was one of the GOP that has defended Trump on this particular indictment. Yet at the same time, he's crossed Trump by saying, hey, if you want to protest, don't show up. That's in direct opposition to what Donald Trump wants to see happen. So, on one hand, Mike Pence is, back and forth again, just like a politician will do. But to what degree is this, and I'm not going to ask you to get in Donald Trump's head or mind, because God knows he'll never come back out, but to what degree is this agitating Donald Trump? That on one hand, they're complimenting him and defending him. On the other hand, they're throwing him under the bus like Ron DeSantis did.
Well, I think it's still a who knows who cares, right? As long as he's got the microphone. And you have to remember, as the late night talk show host said, we got to remember Mike Pence's favorite breakfast is the waffle. So he's comfortable with this.
Yeah.
If you watched any of his interviews, this guy flips like a blood pressure needle. He's all over the place.
Waffle Pence. That if Donald Trump had a name to put to him, it'd probably be Waffle Pence.
Actually, I give Trump credit. He came up with one in the last 5 or 6 years that might actually ring true to the person he applied it to when he called the Florida governor Ron DeSanctimonious. That's pretty damn apt. I don't think he thought of that himself, but
well, that one might stick actually, because he used it just recently when Ron DeSantis basically kept going on and on about, well, he doesn't know how the details work out when you're paying off a porn star, and he said that multiple times as emphasis to basically then come around the corner, around the bend to say, yeah, the district attorney Bragg probably has better things to do with his time. But he wanted to make sure in front of a microphone that everyone knew exactly what the indictment was going to be about, and certainly about Stormy Daniels and the $130,000 payment. So maybe Donald Trump has a new name for Ron DeSantis, which we probably can't mention on this show. Hard to say.
Oh, okay.
Is there a question in that? No. Should there have been? Yes. I'll go on to the next question. And that is,
well, and before you do, DeSantis has made it very, very clear that particularly when you're looking over on the Republican side of the fence, but this may be equally true with both and all parties, the more ambitious the person is, the more cutthroat competitive they're going to be. They're not there to be diplomatic to their competitor. You won't see that out of him any more than you would see it out of Trump.
Well, to Ron Steele's point, Ron Steele, what are they waiting for? Why are they, again, I go to the question, why are they pussyfooting around? Isn't this the time to finally put the stake in the vampire's heart and say, be done with you? But apparently there's such reluctance to do so. And again, you're right, 33% is 33%. And that's the largest percentage right now of any would-be candidate for 2024 for the GOP party. But my God, I mean, grow a backbone, stand on your hind legs, do something. And to Ron Steele's point is they can't do it. They don't have it within them.
Maybe, or maybe it's a question of timing. Right now, two aspects of the timing issue. It's working much better for the prosecution and the Democrats than it is for Trump or anybody on the GOP side. The anticipation that people have is for the indictment. They're actually looking forward to it and not reacting against it for the majority, and that's been shown. But the second thing about the timing that's important to remember is that the Democrats may have been relatively silent on Trump's indictment, but in the meantime, they have been extremely vocal on things that are and should be issues that really should get the attention and the appreciation of the majority of the American people and voters.
Are you talking about kitchen table bread and butter issues?
And look, in the last few days, Trump has expanded the protections for national monuments. He's rolled back virtually all of those that Trump had removed and reinstated them, and he's added to them.
Mm-hmm.
He's now adding hundreds of thousands of nautical square miles to the National Marine Sanctuary in the Pacific. And the media is welcoming that. They're endorsing it. The environmental groups are. They're not happy about the Willow Project. But hey, if this is Trump's lot to watch Biden make hay out of having to give in to Alaska on the Willow Project and then turning around by catering to the environmentalists with far larger, more long-term issues. Maybe that's an upside. So I think we need to remember, look at what each side is doing with this opportunity, where each side is directing the narrative, and how that might play out over time to 2024. Also, the third thing about the timing, the longer you wait to bring these, the more likely it is that they will still be going full steam at the time of the 2024 campaign and election.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's escaped anyone's attention.
Well, isn't that part of the criticism that this is being perfectly timed to interfere with Donald Trump's ability to be a viable candidate?
Why would you not?
I understand.
It's not
I understand,
illegal.
but justice really shouldn't be geared towards political timing. That would be the argument.
Really. And point me to an event in American history and politics.
I knew you were going to pin my ears back on this one, but
no, I would like to know. I can't think of any.
Well, I mean, let's start off. You can't prosecute a sitting president. Where is that written in the Constitution? That was a DOJ memo. A DOJ memo by, I forget who it is. You know, I won't say it's an intern, but my God, I mean, it's never been tested in front of the Supreme Court. I mean, who said you can't prosecute, whether it's bad timing or not, the President of the United States while he's in office?
And it cited no legal authority at all.
Correct.
I mean, that's to have something come out, even during the Trump administration, as a DOJ policy memo and position of great importance, without any legal authority or precedent. It's purely political, like everything else.
Well, how could it be political when the politicians said, okay, they just dutifully complied with a memo from the DOJ? I mean, without any legal testing of it.
Well, enough of them to prevent a guilty verdict on impeachment took that position. Well, we knew that beforehand because the Republicans had enough votes to do that.
Well, yeah. I mean, I suppose that's part of my point is you've got the political, votes to not impeach. Why not the DOJ's evidence of criminality and use that as the means to crowbar a president out of seat if he's criminally liable for it? I don't know. I understand how sticky and ugly that could get and how it can be used for every president moving forward. So I understand the rationale behind it, but doesn't make it necessarily right all the time.
No, but that's a great point, Tim, because it reminds us, you got to remember which stage you're on, who's writing the script, who's dictating the lines and the action of the characters. Mm-hmm. Political stages are not an effective place to do that, have not been for years. I mean, it's like trying to get something that really is constructive and popular through Congress. I'm not holding my breath on that one either.
Correct. Hey, Donald Trump's campaign says his announcement, obviously, I think his announcement was directly related to the fact that he wanted to interfere with any potential indictments, and which It's doing fairly well so far. Did this indictment re-energize his campaign? Certainly, if not to raise more money and dollars for his campaign, but certainly to whip up more sympathy and or support for the plight of Donald Trump?
Well, it brings us back to understanding that this particular indictment is the hardest to politicize as a witch hunt. Mm-hmm. It's also the one that factually is both the most solidly data supported and the one that squares most with a great majority of American values.
Well, I want to go to that because there's a lot of people looking at this indictment and the others, the document, Mar-a-Lago document case, and hoping that once and for all, a man who's avoided the justice that deserves justice and has avoided it, yet will the justice system eventually prevail? And I don't know if it's this particular indictment or the one in Georgia or the ones that Jack Smith has on teed up himself has teed up. But at what point will justice be seen by half of this country?
That's a great question. And I think the response to that question is going to depend a lot on which one comes next. Is it going to be Letitia James, the other New York one, on tax evasion? Is it going to be Georgia on election overturn efforts? Interesting. And they got to be talking.
You think they are talking?
Not, right?
Well, okay, I'm going to go back to a question I mentioned earlier on in the show is, what if it comes out that they have been coordinating? Is that political collusion? And is that a godsend to the GOP to point that out?
Well, first of all, how do they get it? If they were going to get that...
Well, they won't get it on Fox because it's not Fox News.
Right. You may get the allegation. But all I'm saying to him is, if that were detectable and going to come out, if they had leak sources for that, that would have come out long before this. Because they have to have been talking for a long time. They know that the political abuse and ramifications of this are a factor that could significantly impact their prosecutions. The strategic evaluation and decision making that are going into this and having this one come first, I mean, so far, to me, this makes the best sense.
Well, good. You're maybe a minority in that point, but I'm glad that you made it. I'm actually glad to hear you say it because I was concerned that this was the first indictment out of the door, and I wasn't sure it's the best one to be seen. But okay, I understand your rationale, and I like it. Thank you.
This is the most difficult for him to both marshal financial and popular and political support for, and the one that may be the first domino. Mm-hmm. So which one do you think might be next?
I certainly was happy to hear that Trump's attorney regarding the confidential classified documents of Mar-a-Lago, that attorney may well be used as a witness against Donald Trump. He is now being required to turn over all of his notes about whether or not and how he got notice that there were no longer any documents at Mar-a-Lago, yet there was hundreds. And so it'll be interesting to see how that client confidentiality has been pierced.
Well, and that's a great point because there's an exception to that. Actually, there's a bunch, but the biggest exception is the crime fraud exception. If it's part of an ongoing crime or fraud or enterprise or conspiracy, it doesn't have that attorney-client privilege protection. And that's, I don't see
that just puts a whole different coloring on that particular potential indictment, doesn't it?
It does. because it shifts the focus back to Trump as the person who orchestrated, directed, and commandeered it, that it was knowing and intentional. And that is the key element of that document.
Richard Nixon knew very well it wasn't the break-in, it was the cover-up of the break-in. And this alleged instructions to his attorney that everything was fine, there was not another document laying around. If that comes to be the obstruction of justice part of the indictment, that's a serious one, and that's how all arrogant and those with hubris go down the tubes. Is the cover-up,
right? Because ultimately, when the henchmen know that the ringleader is going to throw them under the bus, betray them, sacrifice them, malign them, abuse them, whether truthfully or not, and then the Mitchells, Haldemans, and Ehrlichmans and G. Gordon Liddy's head for the hills. Fortunately, Mitchell did it at a point in time where our late great Senator Dan Inouye's microphone was still on, and we all heard him say, "What a liar." What a great moment in American publicized corruption investigation proceedings.
Yeah, there's been a lot of hot mic moments with candidates and would-be candidates, but we'll leave it at that. Hey, we're out of time, Chuck. I want to thank you, but hey, you have any last thoughts on this indictment?
Well, just following on what we were just talking about, unfortunately for the media, the "what a liar" firework is not likely to have any particular force this time. That card has been played more times than there are in the deck.
Yeah, I think the count is over 30,000. That's when he just left office. So God knows what number we're up to now. So what a liar.
So let's see which indictment comes next. That will tell us a lot.
Yeah. Any predictions on when this?
Which one would you bet on?
Pardon?
If you were making odds on which one's going to be next.
Well, I think this one's teed up and ready to go, unless they found some, new evidence from Michael Cohen's attorney that just scared them, and now they're not certain.
No, I mean after this one.
Oh, after this? Oh,
yeah.
I think it's going to be the Mar-a-Lago one. Too complicated?
No. I think the natural sequitur is the tax evasion. It's another one that's really hard to raise political campaign money on, and it's another one
that's the Manhattan District Attorney again.
Yep.
Yeah.
Letitia and the crew, right? And Bragg and the rest of them. Yeah.
I'm going to take you to Las Vegas with me because I always lose, so I need someone to guide me on the right way to play blackjack and all the other games of chance. Thank you.
Remotely.
Yeah, remotely, of course. Thank you so much. I'd like to thank your time, your great opinions, and we'll see how this all plays out. So I'm Tim Apicella, filling in for Jay Fidell for American Issues Take One. Why don't you join us next week? And until then, aloha.
Thank you so much for watching ThinkTech Hawaii. If you like what we do, please like us and click the subscribe button on YouTube and the follow button on Vimeo. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, and donate to us at thinktechhawaii.com. Mahalo.